Here.
Johnson? Here. Clement? Here.
If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We can talk about that.
The agenda, Mark, is any additions, corrections?
No changes, Mayor.
Thank you. The minutes from March 6th aren't quite ready yet, Tammy?
I just haven't done today.
So,
Maybe next time.
Next time, okay. No special order study session. Tamara Gillis, City Clerk, has been starting us on the Charter Revision Road. Tammy?
Okay, so I've done a charter revision timeline. As you can see, we've got one for this November and then for next May. There's a correction that needs to be made for the next May. On the timeline where it says November 2024, it should say May 2024.
So it's our choice which one we choose?
It's right, your choice. But if you choose, I did on my position paper ask for some direction, because I do have to know which one you want to go to. Because if you do pick this November, I need to get started in 2 weeks. So the process is develop a timeline, which I have. So the first thing we have to do is adopt a resolution declaring a charter revision and establish a charter revision commission, which I've also gave you a sample of that resolution. And I've also gave you a sample of what it would look like on the ballot. So we would do both at the same time. So if the proposal gets voted down, then the Charter Revision Commission would convene, and then we would abolish, they have two choices. They can either just say there's not a Charter Revision Commission, or they can pick pieces of the charter, and then we can bring that to the vote of the people as well. So there is a bunch of, I've got a bunch of highlights here. It all outlines exactly what you can do. You can't do more than go 3 times to the commission. You have to, the city shall be enacted 3 times to qualify election of the city. If the charter is rejected 3 times, if no revised charter is adopted during 3 years from the adoption, then it ceases to exist. So you start all over. So we can either place it on this November, or we can place it on May of 24. If we do this November, I've got to start preparing the petitions for the candidates to come and pick them up.
And they do that May 1st? No sooner than?
No, I would do it April 1st. Yeah, they can do it right away, as soon as I get them prepared. And then, if the proposal passes on the ballot, the charter revision meets and reviews the current charter and proposes changes, and then it goes to the Attorney General for approval, and then it gets put on the ballot. So there's all timelines and deadlines, but that's pretty much the process of how this all works.
Does the city charter say how often you have to do a revision or look at the charter?
No.
And it's been 12 years?
This one was adopted in 2012. The one before that was like 22 years before we changed it. A full adoption.
Tammy, I know that you and city staff have met and generated a list of the various items that you feel need to be revisited, correct?
I have, yes. I did, we would need to send it out to staff again. But yeah, I did it a couple of years ago. I printed it out, and I went word for word, and I've made all the revisions I think that should be made, but that doesn't mean other people don't have other ideas.
And well, that's where I was going with that. There must be a mechanism then for soliciting also suggestions?
We just send it out to everybody, to the charter, to the department heads, and staff members, and they read it and do their changes. And then when the election commission or the charter revision commission meets, when you're looking at that section, it would be highly suggested to bring in those staff members that that section pertains to, and see what they have to say.
Okay, now did I understand you just now to say, correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be, the proposals on the ballot and the commissioner candidates are on the ballot.
Correct.
And if the proposal is not approved, the commissioners can still be elected and then they can meet and choose pieces of the charter to revise?
That is correct. That is what the statute says.
Okay, now do those revisions have to go also to the Attorney General, or they stay in-house?
I didn't go that far. I'm not sure. I can't remember when we just did the last ones, whether it had to or not. I think just the full revision goes to Attorney General, but I'm not positive.
There's separate processes, amendment versus revision, and so there's different, and I haven't looked at it in a little while. It's all in the Home Rule City Act, so you can move to an amendment process from a revision process if there's no petition voted on.
Okay.
Why would that commission do its thing if the public says no?
It's two different things. So a revision is looking at the entire charter, whole mail, versus an amendment is looking at specific changes to the charter in little bits. So
And once those changes are made, does the public re-vote again? Or does the commission have full power to initiate those changes
changes require a vote.
of the people? So you have to put it back on the ballot again?
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's amendment or the entire charter, it has to go back to the voters, right?
Okay, that's
what I put.
Correct.
Thank you.
Which we've done that a couple of times since 2012.
So then the first vote is to establish the charter commission.
To declare that you want a charter revision.
Correct. And then the second vote by the people, there's two votes by the people, it sounds like. One, do you want to revise the charter and establish a charter commission?
And then a vote on the charter.
And
later.
then two, yes.
That's 3 years down the line.
Sometimes it's 3 years, I guess, before it's ready.
Correct.
Mark, have you, or Tammy, have you talked to the other commissioners about the charter revision? Is there good support among all of us?
Yeah, I don't know that I've asked that specific question, Mayor, but I think there's been an interest from, I would say, everybody at the table
Okay.
to look at it in one way or the other. So that would generate probably looking at the whole thing.
And then you could also, as you meet with us weekly, talk about which election date would be preferred by the majority of us. Unless we're ready to make that decision, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Absolutely, sure.
So we're going to put it on for November or next May.
Right.
But if we choose November, we need to let her know
Right.
ASAP, so she has to start in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, before April 1st.
So what happened last time I heard that X number of people ran? I saw the ballot. It's in here. There weren't 9 people even running. So where did the other 2 come from?
Got your answer on that one. So I looked at the Home Rule City Act today on that question, and it looks like it's the commission in their first meeting, the Charter Revision Commission, appoints to fill the vacancies. So if there's less than 9 that get elected or that run, then whoever gets elected would then meet at their first meeting and appoint to fill the vacancies for the remaining.
Okay. Thank you, Fred.
I have another follow-up question regarding timing. So let's say we recognize that April 1st is next week, right? And so you would have to immediately start working on that. Would it make any sense to do the election in spring of the 2024 versus fall of 2024? Just looking at the 2 timelines, is there another timeline?
May of 2024.
Okay,
And it's November 2023.
yes. Well,
Yeah,
sorry, I thought it
you need
was.
to- You need to correct that, because I.
Okay, that's what you were saying, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
you could do it in May.
okay,
We couldn't do it any sooner. There is an election for presidential, candidates, but you can't use that election.
okay,
Say that again, Tim?
The, presidential candidates is gonna be, that election is gonna be, I believe, March of 24.
Primary.
Primary, yes,
Primary.
primary. We would not be able to put our proposal on that. We'd have to wait till May.
Why would that be?
Just
Nobody's allowed to put anything on.
Oh.
But,
So if we want to put it on the ballot in November of 23, we have to let you know in the next month.
next couple weeks.
So our next meeting, we'll make that decision, whether we're gonna wait till the next spring or do it in the fall. We have time to.
I'm inclined to say right now, given the timeline, I would be comfortable doing a May 2024. I'm never gonna,
Because you've got April, you know, that petitions for candidates and the charter revision, and they have until July to get them in. You wanna make sure you have enough time. You probably could go a little longer than that. I just wanna make sure, I mean, we're looking for 9 people. You've gotta get the word out, you've gotta, you know.
All right, so next meeting we'll take a position on that timing, huh? Unless we're ready to do it today. Thank you, Jimmy. Runway extension update, Steve Rover. He's walked out on us about 4 times now, he's finally here.
I'm trying to speak. Yeah, good evening, Commission. I just wanted to update you on where the runway extension efforts are currently. I was really hoping I'd come with really good news today, because I'm waiting on word from the FAA that everything's a green light. However, I think that's going to come in any day now, but I have not got that phone call yet, or email. So, if you remember back at the study session, or the work session that we did, where we had meeting hunting here, we were talking about funding opportunities. So, looking at that, we needed to utilize the AIP funding and the BIL money, which is the bill money. So, with those funds, we could then fund the runway project to its entirety. But we needed to use that funding. So, they required us to do a justification study, of which we did end up submitting a justification study back in October. And MDOT kicked it back with some revisions. We went ahead and resubmitted it in November. Then they met with the FAA, and actually the FAA had reviewed it and went ahead and justified the earmark, the use of the $1.8 million. However, we still need to utilize that other funding, right? That still leaves us with about $1.2 million short, so we had to go back to the drawing board. They did indicate that if we had a letter of support, one more letter of support, that they would then entertain the funding. Ferris State University, Dr. Pink's office, wrote an excellent letter of support to us, indicating that they have several uses from academics to athletics, alumni coming in. Anyways, wrote a really good letter of support for us. We sent that on to the FAA. They met, they said they really liked the letter, however, they wanted technical aircraft information in the letter. So we went ahead and reached back out to the office. They were happy to work with us. We did get that letter updated with all the information that they were looking for, and sent it over to the FAA last Thursday. So we heard back from the MDOT actually today, and they stated that they're very happy with it and believe that the FAA would also be happy with it. So, but unfortunately, we're still waiting on the FAA. With that, we have a kind of a short timeline with the environmental assessment. If you remember, that's a 12-month process, and really we need to have that wrapped up, preferably by the end of March of 2024. So here we are, right against the deadlines. There has been a couple things we've done already with the EA as far as reaching out to initial federal agencies and things like that to start the process. So we're hoping that we can get contracts in front of the commission, you know, within the next couple meetings here, and in that case still meet our deadline for the EA, so that we can start construction in 2024. So other than that, that's really where it's at. I'm hoping to be back very soon with some really good news, but that's where I'm at as of now. Be happy to answer any questions.
Did any of those experts mention the word ocean?
So we did update the justification study to include that. However, that in particular hasn't been brought up. You know, with the justification process, we have to forecast additional flights, and it's really hard to truly forecast what that would be, besides the fact that we anticipate increased air traffic.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, Ed Muccio. Is there any issue associated with possible concurrent environmental studies between what you're talking about and Goshen?
From what I understand, there isn't. I know we talked to MDOT Aeronautics, Steve Houdeman. He used to do the environmental assessments for MDOT Aeronautics. He's since transferred to another department, but he said that he feels that our EA should be able to be completed in a 12-month time, and I don't know of any issues.
And is there any synergism associated with combining, or is that just going to constipate the process?
Yeah, I haven't necessarily heard of any. I don't know, Mr. Gifford.
Yeah, and I'm not clear of any either. I mean, everything I know about the Goshen approvals, other than, what do they call it, the CFIS kind of review, everything I know about that are state approvals, Eagle and so forth, whereas I think some of the airport ones are federal.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it works, but it's worth looking into, and we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good idea.
Other questions for Steve? Thank you, Steve.
Hope to be back soon.
Public comment, not related to items on the agenda. Hearing none, we'll pass to the public hearings, which there are none. Now to grants under general business. Mark, Sweet Hill Skate Park.
Yes, Mayor, very excited to bring to you this grant application to the DNR and their Passport Grant Program, which we've been able to take advantage of twice, I believe, one for Mitchell Creek Park and one for the Library Park, and hoping to be successful again to build our skate park that will be at Sweet Hill Park. We've had some great fundraising. You remember our Put Your Town on the Map contest we were able to win last year, so that's $25,000 there. We have an endowment to the Sweet Hill Park Fund at the Fremont Foundation, which has about $34,000 in it. And then we've also had some additional fundraising that would act as our match towards a $222,000 complete project with $150,000 coming from the DNR. So that's what we're hoping to have the commission authorize tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
The only question I had, I'll just do it publicly, because you answered it this morning, about the pump thing, and I wasn't understanding what that was.
Yeah, and a lot of people probably aren't, Mayor, so it's a good question. So if you, in your packet, there's a diagram of what is proposed to be there. There's the skate park itself, which I think most of us are familiar with. And adjacent to that would be what they call a pump track, which is used by bicyclists, but also rollerbladers, I think, to a certain degree. And that's phase 2. So that would not be included in this project. Yeah, that would be phase 2. We would hope to fund at a later date.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions regarding the skate park grant? Is Flora right here? She's ready to roll? Yeah. Okay. Is there a motion to approve applying for the grant for the skate park?
So moved. Support.
Motion and support. Questions anybody else has? Hearing none. Tammy, roll call.
Catherine?
Yes.
Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution accepting the drinking water assessment management grant. Mark or Heather? Heather. The D-Wow.
I think he's doing a great job.
Yeah, D-Wow. We applied for this some time ago, and it's the equivalent to the SAW grant. You're probably more familiar with the SAW grant we were able to get to evaluate the condition of our system. This is the drinking water side of that, which also does mapping work, and there's kind of two components to it that total just shy of $435,000 that we were able to be awarded through Eagle. And so this is the agreement there, and happy to be bringing this as something that we've benefited from the SAW aspect of the work, and namely this project that's out for bid right now. Not to go on a sidebar here, but the project we have out to bid that we talked about, which replaces the sewer on State Street, we wouldn't have identified that probably until failure without the SAW grant. So I'm optimistic about this program to be able to find some of those kind of things that we can do proactively and prevent shutdowns of the system, emergency work, higher costs, all those kinds of things. So I think it's a good thing.
Questions? Is there a motion for the resolution?
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. Other questions? Tammy?
Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Thank you. Every year we get these season maintenance materials and equipment lists. It was kind of interesting reading, I must say. Mark, anything?
We have some new bidders this year. The Gerber Construction, I don't believe has bid in the past, so that's the one that jumps out to me. We only need these as they come up, and sometimes we need all of them. So the way we do this is to accept all the bids, and we will be only using the ones that we have to, and we would start with the low bidder every time.
Questions, anyone? Commissioner? I would accept the motion for the resolution for the construction season maintenance materials and equipment.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. Questions? Hearing none. Tammy?
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
Heffley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes. Next is a resolution to accept the economic development strategy. It's all part of the RRC. That was on the news today. Somebody got a bunch of money down, what was it? Grand Rapids or Kalamazoo Way on their RRC plan.
Michelle has hit the ground running on RRC, and we are hoping that she takes us over the finish line, right? And one of the things that we've talked about previously is our economic development plan. That's a requirement of the RRC regulations. And so Jesse had put it together, Jesse Black, and presented it to the commission some time ago, and this is asking for formal adoption of our economic development plan.
How does it tie with the MCDC?
Well, certainly they would be tasked with some of the primary duties within it. Kelly Wazik was on Jesse's steering committee, but you know that's something they should be very well aware of, and I would make sure that happens.
In the right place has a copy. We'll have a copy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes it seems like we have two things going at the same time.
I understand how you feel that way. Yes.
Questions? Other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the plan?
So moved.
Support.
Motion support. Questions further? Tammy?
Simmons?
Yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
Heffley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Oh, this is more exciting by the minute, isn't it?
Cell phone leases.
Cell phone leases.
We have cell phone providers that lease space on all of our water towers, I believe, except for the Ferris Tower. There's nobody on there, if I remember right. So we have numerous leases of numerous amounts, and Verizon came to us specifically about their lease on the Bjornson Street, which capped them at 12 antennas. And Brad was able to work with them to negotiate an increase up to 15 if they paid us $250 a month additional. So that's what we're bringing to you. Is I was entertained to see that this is the third amendment to the lease, and so we've amended them before, but yeah, that's the bottom line there. They would go from 12 to 15 antennas and pay us additional to do that.
So who's the expert in antenna leases on water towers that can say, yeah, we're getting to go at the best rate possible?
That's a great question. We have we did a bit of a study. I want to say we've always relied on the city attorney. Eric primarily did these negotiations because they have, they can bog the staff down in legalese and leases and so forth. So Brad's inherited that because of that reason. And I know Eric did a study somewhat of what comparable cities charge. That wasn't that long ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And maybe we should do it again. because I don't know that any of us are experts on, making sure don't want to speak for Brad, I'll speak for me. I'm not an expert at what, everybody's paying or what the going rates are or whatever, so, we have done some of that, maybe we should do more. These leases, we have many of them that they just, kind of get renegotiated over time, so that would probably benefit us to do. I think my between Heather and I were here.
Yeah, I wouldn't think, it'd be something good.
I'm not.
Brad, are they good, are we getting good rates from your experience? Or?
From my experience, I think you're getting fine rates, I don't know. So the problem is technology changes all the time, right? So the reason that Verizon came to us with this request was they want to update their antennas by adding a few additional ones that are like this big. So they're like 18 inches. And so we looked at the language of the lease and said, well, technically you're limited to 12. And he's like, he admitted, well, this is 15, but they're tiny, so can you just let us have them? And we said, well, if you amend the lease. So we did, and he came back with like $150, and we upped it to $250, and they agreed. So we could look at, what the rates are for these little, newer things and what they are. I don't know off the top of my head what the going rate would be, but I think it's something like $2,500 a month they're paying for their current antennas on the tower.
For one tower or for all the towers?
One tower.
One provider on one tower. Yeah, there's, this adds up to, I should get you the numbers, maybe we should have a study session on it or something, Mayor. I'm very confident to say we're into six figures in what we get in cell tower leases annually. And, but maybe we're low. It's worth some investigation. I think between Heather and Brad and I, we could do some of that.
There is an expert out there that deals with cell tower lease rates, and he's published a lot of information, so we could look at that.
Good, thanks. Is there a motion for the Third Amendment to the Verizon lease?
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. Questions?
Just one quick question.
Yes, please.
Is there any cap on how many times they can amend their lease?
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity.
Probably not.
I mean, once there's no space on the tower.
that would be a good.
When does this one expire?
So the current lease, I think it was a 30-year lease, if I remember right. I mean, there's different extension periods, but I mean, it's been in place for a while.
Yeah.
It's got to be harder to paint the tower when there's all those things all over it.
Yeah, I know that's a problem too. Yeah.
Well, if you remember when we did the State Street water tower and that got painted, we had to have a separate Mondo pole put on site, and we had to take them all off.
That's what that was.
Yeah.
And this isn't upgrading for 5G, is it?
As far as I know, I don't know the technical side of it. We had engineers look at it, and it doesn't say anything about 5G and what they're asking for.
Okay.
So the process is once they amend this lease, they actually have to get consent from the city for their actual proposed upgrade. So that'll be coming from them, assuming we approve the lease.
Thank you. Kenny?
Cochran?
Yes.
Heffley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Summit?
Thank you. There are several appointments to boards and commissions, Mark. I can't say the one last name, so I think you know.
Ava Jarzbakowski lives on, I think it's Magnolia Court. She lives close to Dr. Crew, for those who know where Dr. Crew lives. Her husband Kit was just here. He's on Gerber Construction, and they have little kids, and she wants to get involved and is willing to donate her time towards the Park and Rec Board. So that's pretty great. Jeff, Bob, and Clint have been on the DDA and are willing to continue another term here. So,
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So there's a resolution for those folks. Any comments, thoughts?
Yeah, just always grateful when our citizens step up and get involved. That's what makes the machine go. So we're just very grateful for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that would be a youthful number too, which is
yes.
Good news. Did we have a motion? Did we do that yet?
So moved.
And is there support?
Support.
Motion and support. Timmy, could you read the names so that everybody knows who they're voting on?
I'll read them. Ava Jarzbakowski,
And that's for Parks and Rec.
Park and Rec. Jeff Mossel to the Downtown Development Authority. Bob Patterson to the Downtown Development Authority. And Clinton Zimmerman to the Downtown Development Authority.
Thank you. Any questions?
You just want to follow me up on it.
Call the question, please. Did we got the motion finished, did we? Okay, Tammy?
Heffley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
Next, our favorite subject, polycarp.
I will start, and Andrew and others may want to weigh in. I'm guessing they have some feelings and thoughts about this. So we have been tasked with polycart enforcement, and that's been reinforced at commission meetings a number of times. I know you folks will remember that. And one of the frustrations that staff runs into is that there's a prohibition with putting out the polycart prior to Sunday. Right, we have pickup on Monday all over town. It rotates for recycling in the week, but it's still Mondays. So, and not supposed to put them out prior to Sunday. And then, but then sometimes they are put out prior to Sunday, and we don't have enforcement efforts in place to do things, on Saturday, as an example. So, it's a little bit from a staff point of view that it would prevent maybe some of the complaining, I guess, for lack of a better term, about that issue coming up if it was acknowledged by the commission and in our ordinance that they in fact can be out prior to that. So that's what we're bringing to you, Mayor and Commissioners, is the ability for folks to put them now out on Friday evening. And that's what we have.
Isn't the usual grouse that they're out too much?
This is true.
So
Yes,
we're
it
going
is.
to make it legally out too much.
That is certainly one way to look at it, yes.
Well, I think part of the problem is on the Mondays, when they stay out, they don't get put back
That's the usual grouse.
after, and this doesn't, I don't think this addresses that issue, does it?
That is not, Commissioner, no. So that would be addressed through just traditional enforcement. This is more targeted. I've received a couple complaints on the weekends that I've received on Monday when I come back to work. Upon following up with those complainants, there's always frustration. I go, why do you guys have the ordinance if you don't enforce it on the weekend? So justifiably so. We looked at some other options, and I think this is probably the best solution we've come up with so far. Absent getting, either more personnel involved or additional personnel on staff, which I don't know if the city's ready for that conversation yet.
Well, I can appreciate, just because being a college town, with the kids, there's a lot of transiency on the weekends. Kids go home, they're not back on Sunday to put them out, if indeed they're the ones putting them out. So I appreciate that. It makes sense. So thank you.
The added language is in bold, which says sooner than 5 o'clock. It doesn't have AM, PM, even though I should assume it's PM. And then I believe on the Friday, in bold and underlined, is added. Are those the only two changes we're looking at? Or was on the Friday in the ordinance from prior to this amendment?
On the Friday is not in there, right? But what is it say on the Sunday?
On the Friday is the addition.
Right.
I believe
What
it
is
was on the
what
Sunday.
it says on the Sunday
I believe
now?
that was the original.
And that would be intended to be PM.
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
So if you go away for the weekend, you put them out on Friday, then you don't have to put it up when you get back. Is that one of the benefits?
I think that's one of the arguments for it, yes.
To me, they should be out as little as possible, period. So adding a whole weekend when they can be out, I don't like that, but I'll vote as it's just me.
Mayor, I can just tell you, as someone who has been dealing with this issue since I first stepped foot into the city government, this has been an ongoing challenge for the city since the beginning of time. And I think possibly, part of it because we have such a transient population with a lot of renters and so forth, and some kids don't get back until Monday morning or whatever. But the issue of getting them out in a timely fashion and getting them back to the property in a timely fashion has been one we've been struggling with for a while.
That didn't help.
Okay.
Others,
I should
anybody?
study my files.
Rosemary, clear it up. Clear it up, Rosemary.
Okay, the garbage cans are gonna be out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yeah.
That's more than half of a week.
So there, Mark.
This is
That's
true.
not
So
good.
very astute.
I'm sorry. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You're gonna have.
Not till after 5 on Friday, though, or we're gonna ticket you.
If you wanna talk about students, they'll probably be gone home before 5 o'clock anyway, so how are you going to hit them if that's, they're not gonna put them out over in the park Sunday night, yeah. That garbage can get knocked over, some, you have Davenports out there, beds out on the weekend, when our town should look nice. I can't see it. Sorry.
All right, other comments? Did we have a motion to approve that? Ordinance has to take 4, doesn't it?
Correct.
Correct.
Is there a motion to change the ordinance to Friday at 5?
Mayor, if
this,
we can bring this back to you too. I mean, is there other ideas?
leave it.
Can I just say?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's my understanding a little bit that this is what's already happening in our community anyways, and this would just, you know, if the community as a whole is saying, we're sticking our thumb up to this, we're not gonna follow this rule, we don't have the staffing to enforce this rule, then what good is the rule? At some point we have to change the rule, or crush the public and make them follow the rule. That's my interpretation of this. Like, you know, if the public is saying by silent protest and putting their stuff out to the curb, we don't believe in this rule.
Where do we draw the line though? Because you're gonna have a mess. If garbage cans and stuff are knocked over and you have them sitting there for 3 days, are those young kids going to come back and clean up their mess? No. And then you're gonna be left, and then we're gonna have it's gonna be terrible. I'm sorry, but I think that's ridiculous.
Ma'am, could you state your name for the record, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Denise Moore.
Oh, hi Denise, good.
And, I think that's crazy, because I think we're just opening a great big gate that we're not prepared to clean up.
We have 2 choices, vote on it or table it for a bit and talk about it with Mark.
Motion to,
Please.
motion to table it and speak with Mark about that for further comment.
Is there support?
I would support.
Support for tabling the polycart ordinance. Does that take a special vote besides, no, just majority? Roll call, Tammy.
Johnson?
Yes.
Simon?
Yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
Epley?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes. Unscheduled business, I had one thing. We kind of let the city manager evaluation thing kind of fall off the wagon. My thought on resolutions, if nobody has another one, is to get 5 evaluations from cities all around here and pick one and be done with it, or go back into the process. I don't care.
So Commissioner Cochran and I were actually speaking just about that it's time to bring it back to the commission
Just by
in
me.
a work session.
But we gotta do it before June, because that's when we do this evaluation. That's what I'm thinking of.
Discussing that as well, yeah.
So, you or Karen or both? Amanda was on there.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
think it's a group of us that are working on it.
3 people can't group
No,
together.
No, I've never,
Yeah, I should say, yes.
I found out for a couple of months due to illness in the family, so.
But I believe it is tentatively already scheduled for the work session for April 3rd.
Yes,
Am I right?
yes. He must not have known that this morning, because you didn't tell me that this morning.
No, I think it's been on there, Mayor, we just haven't been talking about that. Well, and it wasn't clear if it was really happening or not, but it sounds like it is.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
In work session. We're gonna have a work session led by Jennifer Cochran, and we're gonna break for 5 minutes and restart over across the way. Mark, you got me set me up there on that one.
No, I didn't mean to. Maybe I didn't mean to do that. It's been hanging out there on the agenda, but it was that Karen's thing.
Well, that's what you told me that Karen's gonna do it, but I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah, so. I apologize, Mayor. Sorry about that.
That's the way how we work. Candy, you're in here on to shut it out. Yes.
I don't. Thank you.
Everybody
Horses
in
in
my
it.
neighborhood is in silent protest.
What would they like?
They always put it up on Friday.
They do.
Friday night
If
or
they
Saturday
leave?
night.
If they
Yeah, because they leave. And so,
That's your neighbors?
yeah, that's, everybody in my block puts it out.
Rentals.
No,
Mainly
there's homeowners.
homeowners?
There's homeowners. There's, former bank employees, there's former, faculty that are
Right on the phone to you. Your garbage is out too soon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do know, yeah.
In my mind, I'd rather garbage be picked up than that. And you know how kids are.
Oh, nice. Oh, well, here, we'll reconvene. You want just a minute, just hand them up? Or I can hand them up.
Did we miss something, Mark?
Yes.
It was my fault, because I was hesitating. The flyers
Efficiency and then.
Your 5 minutes will cheat on the work session.
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry.
Illegal, but-
I'm sorry.
Go.
We need to invest in communities, you know, these are, I love
I got to sit up there with Mark.
Maybe that's
Harry,
it.
today's meeting.
Yeah.
That was
Two thirds of my body is below the table.
I feel like a toddler.
Give me my bin, my strange shirts.
I almost brought that up, Brad. We're just, he probably stuck out for that, yeah. That's the police officer. Oh, come on now. We're not gonna have, well, that's what he's talking about.
Like they have nothing to do with new politics.
Yeah, I almost got a razz chat about that.
We're back in session, and a guest that was here forgot to say what she wanted to say, so we're gonna do it regardless. Against the rules, go for it.
I'm sorry, I kind of missed my jump in. I'm just here from the Michigan Community Action. I'm the coordinator from Acosta and Osceola County. I just wanted to bring attention to, we are here to help pay property taxes, your water bills, that kind of thing. So like I said, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't forgotten or that everybody knew that we were here to help out. So, and I do have flyers for each of the board members.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'll just set up
The treasurer's office is aware of that, because I know they have some of the people that are
Yep,
there.
yep, I
Their
keep,
monthly list, yep, I'm sure you work quite regularly with Andrea. So.
yes, thank you.
Am I starting? Okay. Actually, so we're here, in the vein of having started this process of just kind of reviewing our processes. We voted on our changes to the rules of procedure. We are now looking at our ethics policy, which hasn't been looked at in about 10 years. And so for two reasons that I wanted to bring this to everybody. And one is to ensure that the ethics policy is congruent with the changes that we made to the rules of procedure. The other is, of course, to talk about the ethics policy just so that we all understand what it is, why we have it. We all signed it when we took the oath of office, which Mrs. Gillis reminded me of. But I feel like it's just a good time to review that, the whys and wherefores. And then once, hopefully when we have approved the changes, hopefully at the next meeting, then we need to at least give Mr. Fowler the go-ahead to draw up a new city ordinance. However, I am going to ask, and I appreciate Mr. Fowler being here this evening. I know it's been probably a very long day. Just to give us an overview of the legal framework of the ethics policy, why we have them, and then we will go from there.
Sure. So when Commissioner Cochran brought this to my attention, we've been emailing back and forth about potential changes. And first step, I think, as I looked at the charter, is well, what are the requirements for an ethics policy in the city charter? So there is a charter provision, section 2.6, says within 2 years after the effective date of the charter, the commission shall adopt an ethics policy ordinance by which all persons in the municipal service, whether compensated or voluntary, shall abide. It shall encourage such persons to place the public interests above self-interest. So that's the direction you have from the city charter, and it's quite broad. I mean, that it's basically you have to have a policy, and it has to address encouraging putting the public interest above self-interest. Beyond that, it's up to you as the commission to formulate that policy however you see fit. There's some resources out there that we've shared. MML has a code of ethics handbook, and there's sample ethics policies. The one you have in existence is somewhat mirrors some of the samples out there. They seem to focus mostly on financial and basically fairness and equity in terms of financial, and making sure nobody's taking money from the city, nobody's putting their own interests when they have a conflict above any other interest of the city. But one of the questions I think before any amendment gets into place is what kind of ethical issues have occurred in the past and what kind of ethical issues are you concerned about in the future. Those are the things that you would then want to discuss to incorporate into this policy that's already existing. And other than that, there's not much. You have a lot of discretion in terms of what you put in there.
Okay. I just want to say, first of all, this was, I did kind of a deep dive into this for the first time, and it was a really, really valuable learning experience. When we get to it later, I'm going to ask Mr. Fowler also just to briefly explain the difference between Section 6 and Section 10 in terms of what enforcement there is around that. But for my purpose, one of the things that we talk about with the rules of procedure had to do with ensuring that we promote an environment for civil and respectful discourse and so forth, so that everyone's voice is heard and that we have an environment in which everyone feels safe and comfortable to participate. So one of the things that I learned about in getting into this and reading the MML ethics handbook that Mr. Fowler sent to me was that ethics in government and civility are two different things, but they are very complementary. You really need civility in order to effect the other stuff. So again, this is just really to bring this to your attention, to be thinking about it. I feel very passionately just in the times in which we're living that we need to reintroduce the whole notion of discourse or civility and respect and so forth into the public discourse. Because in government in particular, we seem to be getting away from it. Not this one, but I'm saying in general, the environment we're living in this country right now. And one of these things too has to do with really setting the bar high as public leaders. So that just gives you a little bit of context in terms of how I approach this. Effectively, we're just talking about changes to two sections. First is the proposed changes to Section 2 purpose. It's the purpose for this policy. And all I did here was I went out to some different ethics policies from different cities around Michigan, and I found language that I thought was clearer, more precise, and that was more descriptive to the public of what the purpose of this policy is. So if you look at your ordinance, you see it in red. Rather than just having this two-line statement that we had originally, what I'm proposing is what we have determined, and I again thank Mr. Fowler for his help with this, is hugely appreciated. The citizens and businesses of Big Rapids are entitled to have a fair, ethical, and accountable local government. It is the purpose of this chapter to deliver on that mission and earn the full confidence of the public by requiring all persons in the municipal service to perform their work in compliance with high ethical standards and the utmost integrity, always putting the city's interests above their own personal interests. Okay. I do want to just draw your attention on the next, in section 5, the definitions. Who is included in the definition of a public servant? That is the mayor, members of the city commission, officers, full or part-time city employees, and any person elected or appointed to any public body of the city, whether compensated or not. And the simple reason I'm pointing this out is also to remind us that while we are updating this, and I believe Mrs. Hauger is looking to update other workplace policies, and we're looking to be congruent, that this policy, these policies, the workplace policies that are in place here, we are all covered by that. We are all beholden to those in terms of how we behave. So it's kind of a collective situation there. Okay. The only other change that I'm proposing is section 6, direction to public servants. You may remember that we talked about this first statement, whether or not to include it in the rules of procedure, and we had determined that it really belonged more in the ethics policy. So I am adding it here for your consideration. The professional and personal conduct of public servants must be above reproach and avoid even the appearance of impropriety. Public servants shall refrain from making personal attacks upon the character or motives of others and avoid any action which might result in or create the appearance of, and the following, I think it's at least this one, the following 6 statements. This is simply a statement of what we should all be aspiring to be as good and responsible public servants of the city of Big Rapids. Commissioner Johnson and I participated in the Elected Officials Academy that the Michigan Municipal League offered, and one of the first things that they told us in the leadership part was to set the bar high. This is what I consider aspirational government. This is like, the journey toward a more perfect union and the democracy, kind of the same idea that we want to strive to be the best public servants that we can be and to lead by example. So this section is simply intended to kind of reflect that, codified in the ethics policy. And that is really all, those are the only changes that I am suggesting. Mr. Fowler, this is something that I learned, and I just want to make sure everybody has heard this and understands it as well, because I didn't even know this. The difference in prosecution between section 6 and section 10, if you could speak to that just briefly.
Yeah, so section 6 under the ordinance is a municipal civil infraction, which is enforceable by public safety to issue a civil infraction ticket. Section 10 is classified as a misdemeanor, so that's prohibited conduct. We're not making any changes to that, but just at least there's none proposed right now. But all of those items A through H of prohibited conduct, those are misdemeanors, which would be investigated by public safety. Charges would be recommended to the city attorney, my office, and then we would have to authorize the charges just like we would any other misdemeanor in the city code. And so that's how that's enforced. That's not how it has to be enforced, but that's how this is drafted. And so that's the way it is in the ordinance.
So, upon approval, just looking at your recommendations and how you've outlined, which thank you very much, Commissioner Cochran, for outlining these. The last bullet point, a new ethics policy ordinance should be written up by the city attorney. Is that making the changes that we decide here into an ordinance that we vote on, or is that in addition to what we're talking about right now?
No, that's just to rewrite the ordinance with the changes to the, for approval, yeah.
Where does this reference our policies on sexual harassment? Some of
In
those
employment,
other
that's
things.
a general city policy.
Okay. Separate from this ethics section.
Yeah, the city has its own harassment policy, it's not part of the ethics policy.
And it is those, the workplace policies that also outline more specifically the process for reporting should an incident occur. Okay. And what the, to whom one reports.
Yep, to whom reports
and so on and so forth.
Kind of if you don't feel comfortable reporting to a direct supervisor, then it's to the city attorney, city manager, city attorney. There's forms for certain policies and what that.
So we don't need to double dip. We don't need to have that here because.
I don't believe that.
We looked at that a little bit and we determined that looking at other ethics policies that other communities have, they don't really address it because it's addressed elsewhere in harassment policies. So they don't have it in their ethics policy, harassment.
So other groups, what do they talk about with regards to the personal conduct of public servants?
Mostly they focus on all those items that would be considered an abuse of power, as in you using the office for personal gain, playing favorites, abrogating your oath of office, those kinds of things for money, for gain, for political.
Those things in section 10 of prohibited conduct, so divulging confidential information, benefiting financially from confidential information, representing your individual opinions that are the city's, misusing city personnel, resources, or property, soliciting or accepting a gift or loan, or other things of value which would tend to influence you, engaging in a business transaction which may cause the public servant derive a personal benefit or profit, engaging in employment or rendering services that are incompatible or in conflict with your office or position, and then participating in contracts with your party.
Generally speaking, big picture, our job is to make sure and to do our very best to ensure public confidence and trust in city government. And so, very simply put, the idea is for us not to do anything that would destroy that or diminish that or prevent that from happening.
I liked what you just said, that kind of summarized it tangibly, because in the section 2, I have no comments. I think that I don't have any positive or negative comments. I think that is very straightforward. But when we get into section 6, and you talk about it must be above reproach and avoid the appearance of input, that's not as tangible. I'm wondering if we're trying to give direction to public servants, if there is a way of, I don't know, of saying that different. I am interested in quantifying it. We give a list of, it's like we give a list of things that we don't want people to do or create the appearance of. Is that first section just kind of explaining what that is versus the language that we're reading right now? I'm interested in opinions.
That's how I viewed it, as aspirational language, and then it introduces the concrete things that you can't do, which are 1 through, in section 6, 1 through 6. It's more of just taking the language from your rules of procedure, putting it in this.
I didn't know you ever was enforced those lines.
Yeah, I don't,
I see no
I
way.
see the 1 through 6.
Who's reproach?
Right, I see the 1 through 6 as being the enforceability. I mean,
For sure.
Right, and this is just the kind of introduction
Well,
to
the
it.
explanation of-
Yeah.
But boy, even in principle and propriety, how do you define that?
Right, I mean, yeah, I don't see that, this is kind of like the precursor to the 1 through 6, I see it as the aspirational sentences to what you're striving for, and I'll see it as the enforceable mechanism. I see 1 through 6 as the enforceable mechanisms.
Commissioner? Anything?
No, I mean, I'm comfortable with these proposed changes.
I'm comfortable with them as well.
I guess I'd like to, think a little more, on, Commissioner Cochran, and then get with you, on any questions that I might have, and I might follow up with the city attorney as well, just to talk through any questions or concerns I have.
Sure.
Do I think that the language needs to be updated? I do think the language needs to be updated.
I know, in conversation with Mr. Fowler, one of the things, that came up in section 6 had to do with the enforceability issue. And section 6, as he pointed out, would be considered civil infractions, so those are items like 1 through 6. This is where I'm talking about combining the civility and the personal characteristic aspect of it with the behavioral aspect of it, so that, really, what we're really saying there is that we want to make a commitment as public servants that we're not going to do anything that causes the public to mistrust or lack confidence in us. So even, politics is perception, that notion, the appearance of impropriety, it's why, we need to be more measured. We need to, as public servants, we need to be thinking all the time about what we're saying, how we're saying it, to whom we're saying it, and so on and so forth, and how we're treating people, no matter where they are in the community, no matter what they believe, and so forth. And it's really more of an exhortation, if you will. It's really a call to arms, if you want to call it that, to really, set the bar high and do whatever we can to achieve it. I don't know that part is not in and of itself prosecutable.
No,
But
I do understand thinking about it in terms of the aspirational. There's just portions of the language I struggle with.
Well, I'm
I
happy
need to think on it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I just need to think on it.
Great, I appreciate that. That's all I really have. Unless anyone has anything. And Commissioner Simmons, if you want to we can get together. If you want to share those thoughts with me, and I'm happy to take a look at that, see what we can work out, and we'll run it past Mr. Fowler and make sure it's copacetic. Okay.
Anything else?
Anybody else?
Anybody? Anything? For the good of the group? Kathy?
I have nothing, sir.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Ready to pay my taxes?
Bring out some people? Or are you doing that?
That one might be one of the memories.
I think it's a great program. No doubt.
Thank you.
I'm gonna roll the line.
Service office. Oh.
But it's a public, maybe actually it's
allow,
still, he can say, yeah.
One class at a time?
Yeah. One class at a time.
And don't take me one class?
So we have, in Holland,
Oh, there he is. We wondered where you went.
Oh, I was in the water stuff. You out of here, Brad?
Long day, Brad. This garden's great. How was before? Before to be a long day.
I'm doing my very best.
Drop off. One nap in the afternoon.
Thank you. Yes, yes.
he was my, so good, so putting a formal.
I'm your person. Yeah.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
You know that polycarbonate thing I told you.
I knew the polycarbonate issue. I warned you this morning.
You did.
Shall be referred to and investigated by the Department of Public Safety.